Is Rajiv Thamala?
Teach you this. I've been trained through the Boost Confidence program, and I am now able to encounter many situations without giving up. How have I benefited from this program? I've benefited from this in many ways, mostly in school. For example, in language arts class, I'm able to write many speeches in class without giving up. And when doing presentations in class, I can make them much longer, unlike before. For example, in the beginning of the year, I only gave 1 to 2 minute speeches, but now I can go up to 10 minutes. This showed that this program has helped me 5 times much more than I was in the beginning. Although this program was meant mainly for my public speaking skills and confidence, it's helped a lot in my writing skills. I am now able to write much longer speeches and get much better grades in class. So overall, this program has helped me succeed a lot in school, and I really thank it. Today, I'm going to be talking about a man who faced a problem that many people never face. Imagine the whole entire world hating you. Imagine not one person in the world liking you. Imagine being spitted on every single day and discriminated because of your skin color. Imagine being Jesse Owens. For those of you who don't know, Jesse Owens is a 4-time Olympic gold medalist in track and field. Seems like an average Olympian, right? Not quite. Jesse Owens was African American. Still no shock, right? Jesse Owens ran in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. This meant that the Olympics was run by Adolf Hitler along with his extremist party named the Nazis. And during the regime, this party was insane and murdered many people. The problem with Owens running this race was that Hitler believed in only the Aryan race and hated anybody who was Jewish or African American. The Aryan race is people with blue eyes and blonde hair. So they were considered superior, and anybody like Jesse Owens who was African American or Jewish were deeply hated. Although Hitler only killed the Jews, he still convinced everybody to despise them. So how did Owens compete then? Well, along with the help of allies, they got this rule abolished, and Owens was luckily able to compete in the Olympics. Jesse Owens was completely astonished by this because it was his dream since he was a little kid to one day compete in the Olympics, and everybody hated him. So what does this do to a man's morality? So put yourself in that situation. Like, nobody in the world likes you. He even had thoughts of committing suicide. But then how did he compete in the race still? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Although they got this rule abolished, the thoughts that Hitler sunk into everyone's brains with his amazing public speaking skills caused Jesse Owens to be deeply hated, and he suffered a lot from this. Another problem Jesse Owens faced was that his car was constantly almost knocked over once, but most of the time there were rocks being thrown at him. When he was going to work in the construction, people would throw rocks at him, and people despised him. But he would never regret this decision forever to compete in the Olympics. He placed first almost every time and won 4 Olympic gold medals in 1 week. That's something that's astonishing, and many Olympians sought to keep. Although Owens faced many problems in his adulthood, he faced many problems in his childhood too. Owens attended Ohio State University, a university that was predominantly for whites. But since Jesse Owens had an amazing time in the 100-meter dash and 200-meter dash, he was able to compete in this race. Along with Owens, there were 4 other African Americans, but those African Americans' fathers were best friends with most of the other professors in this school. So Owens didn't really have a father who really cared for him. So Owens faced many problems, and everybody hated him. They kicked him out of his dorm and spitted on him. One day, he even slept on the couch on a seat outside at a bench near a park because people kicked him out of his dorm and hated him. Owens' parents were both sharecroppers. So sharecroppers are people who pick cotton. And another thing was that when Jesse Owens' parents were kids, they were both slaves. So they also faced a big problem. And the reason that it was a big problem was because when Owens' parents were sharecroppers, they had no time for his son. They worked 20 hours, and Owens had no time to ever pay attention to them. As he said one day, he sat on his porch outside, looking to the right and left, and watched neighbors playing with their kids. Owens went inside and started crying because he wanted to achieve something like other people but couldn't because he didn't even have the money to afford to. He couldn't even afford to go to school, so by the time he came to the age of 6, he started working in construction. And this was a big problem because imagine you working at 6 years old. You were probably playing or watching TV, but Owen sat there working and long grueling hours too. Eventually, he had enough money for school. But at this time, when he went to school, the African American school was really far and it cost an extra bus ticket. Since Owens couldn't afford to go there, he decided to go to the white school. Although he was allowed at the white school, people protested on the streets. As Jesse Owens once said, when he was doing a test in class, he was suddenly risen to awaken by people throwing rocks at his window. He looked suddenly and was very scared by this. But despite all of this going on, Owens still went to school. How did he do this? Another problem Owens had when he was an Olympian was that he had 3 daughters. And in this picture, Owens is pretty old and the 3 daughters look to be about 6 or 7 years old. But since Owens didn't want his kids to be protested or sometimes they received death threats to him, so he wanted them to be safe, so he kept them out of the press. So when these kids were younger, they were all 1 to 2 months old, and Owens had to take care of 3 1 to 2 month old babies. Imagine doing this, it would be impossible. And since Owens was African American, he didn't even get paid a lot in the Olympics. And Hitler actually tried to lower his wage. So he had to work another job. He worked as a sharecropper along with his parents, a construction worker, and in the Olympics. So he trained for 4 to 6 hours in the night. As Jesse Owens once said, we all have dreams, but in order to make dreams come into reality, it takes an awful lot of determination, dedication, self-discipline, and effort. This quote means that even though you have dreams, some people try not to do anything about it. So if you want to be a neurosurgeon or a soccer player, for example, you don't just sit there and read a book or something. You go online and research about it and keep getting closer to getting to your career. This is exactly what Owens did. So although Owens was African American, being African American wasn't really his big quality. His first and most important quality was his resiliency. So what does resiliency really mean? Resiliency means being a titanium wall. Resiliency means no matter how much you fall, you get back up again. This is what Owens implemented in his daily life, and people want to achieve the same thing he did. In this picture, you see Owens running, but there's a reason I decided to put this picture in here. 3 to 4 seconds before this, Owens was stepped on by a running spike. And back then, the spikes were 1 to 2 inches long. And Owens kept going despite this. He was bleeding and it hurt really bad, but Owens kept going and got first place. As I showed in the GIF before, he was running the race and still got first place. This is the same race that he was going in. To get a good picture of it, this is an exact replica of the German runner who stepped on him. These spikes at the bottom are 1 to 2 inches long and they dug into his skin. And despite this, he kept going. This is what resiliency is, and once you can implement this in your daily life, you'll keep going. When you go to school and you get stressed, come back home, you have a lot of homework, or when you go to work and come back and you have a lot of stress, you keep going and keep wanting to achieve. You never give up. This is what you have to implement in your daily life and you'll become closer to Jesse Owens. Another quality Owens had was that he was a leader. So what is a leader? A leader is someone who could show them his qualities and have them mimic them. This is the same exact race as I was talking about before, when he got stepped on. But look at him. Look at his determination on his face, and if you look at his eyes, you can see that he wants to achieve. The people next to him in the stands are the ones that Owens is showing leadership to. Some of those kids are 4 to 6 years old, some of them German, Italian, French, and some are even African American. But the reason Owens is a leader is because these little kids looked at him and saw him being stepped on by that nail, but he kept going. This is what they saw. When these kids fell down on the floor, started crying, or didn't want to keep going, he saw Owens and tried to mimic exactly what he did. And some of these kids actually came to become big athletes someday. This is a picture of Owens training a young group of Indian athletes in a college. The reason Owens decided to pick this college to train them was because they suffered from the same exact poverty he did. these kids were mostly adopted, and they never had any time to have real parents. So in this college, Owens is training these kids how to come off the starting blocks, right, and reach the same goal he did one day. And these kids, actually, one of them ended up going to the Olympics. The third, but not least quality that Owens had was his courage. The reason Owens' courage is so highly respected is because nobody else could have this courage until they found out Jesse's story. The way Owens coped with this courage and used it was because during his early life, he had a lot of trouble when he was younger. Using this courage helped him drive himself forward. So to understand Owens' courage, I need to give a good example. So this is the most memorable example that Owens had. So one day Owens was on the way to the stadium, to the Olympic Stadium, where, some of you may see it on YouTube or somewhere, Hitler saluting his famous Hitler salute while Jesse Owens was racing. So on the way to the stadium, people obviously despised him. German people right and left, and white people to the side of his bus carrying torches and throwing rocks at his window. What happened was Owens was sleeping, and so was everybody else on the bus. And when Owens was suddenly awoken by a loud thud on his window, and he saw spit rolling down his window, he looked at them and saw people throwing rocks at him and lighting fire, and having fire threatening to light the whole entire bus on fire just to remove Owens. Most of you would have turned away, right? Most of you are probably thinking right now, how did Owens deal with this? Well, what Owens did was look at them and he smiled. Now, the word that comes to your head right now is probably savage, but that's not the quite reason. The reason Owens kept going is because of his courage. When he looked at them, smiled, and started laughing, these people looked at him in a weird way and kept threatening to light the bus on fire. But then he started giggling. This got people furious. But the guards eventually cleared them up and Owens was safe. And he achieved great things. So this courage that Owens had is what you need to implement in your daily life. When teachers tell you can't reach your dream career because you're not smart enough for something, you look them in the eye and tell them it's possible. Once you do this, you'll achieve great things. I'd like to thank my parents for bringing me here and showing me where I am. I'd like to thank Karthik for letting me be here, and I'd like to thank the judge for judging my speech.
So what made you pick Jesse Owens when we have so many inspirational figures out there?
The reason I picked Jesse Owens was because I do track too, and when I get down on the starting blocks, I usually get distracted by people next to him. But what I did was Owens had this way of dealing with things. He imagined himself in a hallway with no doors, like a hotel hallway. And if you ran through a hotel hallway, it feels like you're going really fast because it's so skinny. So what Owens did was he looked at the end of the hallway and he saw his goal there. At the end of the line is what you need to reach. So all I have to do is run through that line, and then I'll reach my goal. So that's what I did. That's why I chose it.
Excellent. Very good.